Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Reviews, and today we're giving you guys a review of The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead by Megadeth. So we've listened to this album non-stop for the entire week, and I'm handing the floor over to Vile Self. What did you think of the album?
Big fan of Megadeth, has been a fan of Megadeth for a long time. Just getting that out there. It's always scary when a band you love for a long time puts out a new album, especially when their track record is not the greatest as of late anyway. Like, you look at United Abominations, for example.
I think that album's not that bad.
None of them are that bad, but I mean, as far as their quality goes, anyways, I'm not gonna start listing off things. Let's focus on this. Anyways, I was a little nervous, okay? The singles came out. We'll Be Back was the first single, and we fucking loved it. I still love it. I think that's, honestly, just gonna say this, still best track on the album. Fucking love that song. Then we had
Night Stalkers was the second single.
Right, again, another good one, awesome. 2 for 2. There was one that came out, was it Soldier On?
I believe they did drop Soldier On. I don't think it got a video though.
I don't think we reacted yet. So yeah, that one made me a little more nervous. Like, ooh, what direction is this album going on? Anyways, overall, through the week though, I was pretty pleased. Is this the strongest Megadeth album that I've heard? Nah, not really. It's hard to beat the nostalgia of, you know, the good old days.
But is it the strongest modern Megadeth album?
Yes, it is the strongest modern Megadeth album, I feel, and that's probably saying a lot. One thing I noticed on this album too, and this might be just my interpretation, maybe other people heard it too, but a lot of people say, oh yeah, this sounds like this era, or this sounds like that album, and that kind of thing, right? For me, I heard references or similarities to a lot of different songs and albums throughout Megadeth's career. For example, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead, okay? The title track. There's a riff in this song during the bridge that has a very similar riff to She-Wolf, which is way back off Cryptic Writings. And just fun fact, it's also the same riff that Sum 41 uses in Pain for Pleasure. Very similar anyways. Just fun little fact. But yeah, so you're going way back then. Then you have Sacrifice, track number 5. I don't know if anybody else heard it, but this song has a lot of Hangar 18 vibes, right? So now you're going to Rust in Peace. Another song from Rust in Peace that I got reminded of is Tornado of Souls. There's a part in Soldier On that reminded me of Tornado of Souls. And these aren't like carbon copies. These are just Megadeth being Megadeth, but it shows you that the band's either very consistent or they're deliberately trying to tap into older stuff and an array of their discography to please fans of that older stuff.
It's funny you say that about Soldier On, because I found that the main riff was reminding me of Sleepwalker from United Abominations. So it's just funny that I kind of got a completely different idea from that.
I can see that too. I can't remember the exact part, but there's a specific verse, or maybe just even a part of a verse in Soldier On that reminded me a lot of a part in Tornado of Souls. Mission to Mars reminded me of something from United Abominations. And We'll Be Back reminded me of something off So Far, So Good, So What. So there's definitely like this array of sounds that are all coming together and accumulating in basically a solid Megadeth album. And I don't think that even stuff like United Abominations, I'll mention this again because I feel like it's a frowned upon album. I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people do, but it is lower on my tier list for Megadeth. But even having that in there is not really a bad thing because there's so much other stuff surrounding it and padding it. That sounds like a bad word, not padding. Supporting it is what I should say. That, you know, makes it that Mission to Mars is a very tolerable song. It's got a different sound to a different flavor. And the ending of it is just badass.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it takes a bit to pick up, but it's worth it. The payoff is worth it. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple songs like that on this album, but I think they're really cool in that sense.
You know, you said that actually either earlier on this week or I think even in our first impressions video that a lot of the songs start pretty good and then the second half is crazy. And after you said that, and the more I listened to this album, I noticed that's actually true. A lot of songs start out and it's good, and then second half happens and it becomes crazy. Mission to Mars is a really good example of that. I think Dogs of Chernobyl is another example of that as well. The second half of that, nasty.
Yeah.
And so that was just a really popular thing going on there. Sacrifice, that's a sick song. That's one of the ones that really grew on me a lot. The riff is cool. It has these chimes that come in before the key change, and I think that's sick as hell. There's also a shaker or cabasa, whatever it is, right after, which is also a really cool creative touch there. I forgot what song it was. I'm pretty sure there's a vibra slap in one of these songs as well.
A what?
A vibra slap.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like how to replicate the sound. Kind of sounds like that.
Okay,
it's sick,
I think
though.
I know what you're talking about. I never heard that word before. That's new to me. I learned something today.
Well, there you have it. Megadeth teaching everybody. But, you know, I asked you, do you think this is the best modern Megadeth album? You said yes. I agree with that. And here's a big part of why. Dystopia is a great album.
Agreed.
You know, like, it was like, I wouldn't say a light at the end of the tunnel, but Super Collider was a miss for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And Dystopia is the next one after that. And everyone enjoyed that, myself included. And what I said last week is, you know, these 3 singles really got me thinking, like, ooh, it's gonna sound like old Megadeth. And then the rest of the album, I'm like, okay, well, it just kind of sounds on par with Dystopia.
Yeah.
But what I didn't remember is that, wait a minute, Dystopia is really good. Meaning this album's foundation is really good. You have an album which is built upon the strong modern sound that Dystopia has. Mm-hmm. And then you add more onto that, classic sounding stuff, these crazy second half songs. So you have a really strong album at its core with a bunch of crazy stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes it so much more than what I really originally thought it was. So when I'm listening to it throughout the week, I'm like, wow, now these songs are sick. Now these ones are sick. Even more than just the 3 singles I mentioned last week.
Right, and like I said, I think they did a really good job at still tapping into older stuff too.
Exactly.
And really bringing that aspect back and utilizing it to its full potential.
For sure. Life in Hell is one of the big ones, probably one of the first big ones outside of those singles that really jumped out at me. The scream Dave does, like in the middle of the song going into the bridge, is awesome. It's like, it kind of hit me one time, like, whoa, he's just screaming, you know, the word hell there. Like, that's sick. Love that. Also like the title track. I think the title track is pretty cool. It's cool that he sings a part of the verse and then the guitar kind of does a call and answer with him, which is not the first time Megadeth's done something like that. I just thought it was cool here.
Yeah.
I would say the first of the singles to get into my playlist is Night Stalkers, because that song is just crazy from beginning to end. False endings, incredible riffs.
Boy, that chunky bass at the end when it just comes back in.
Oh my god, there's a few false endings on this album.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even the Iced Tea part is neat. You know, is it anything that makes the changes the game of the song? No, but it's just a cool thing to have.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing.
Exactly, like it's fun, it's cool, and I enjoyed that. But I think, what did you think of Psychopathy, or Psychopathy, or whatever you want to say it? Because that's an interlude track.
I would say Psychopathy.
But
I think, but what?
It's the kind of interlude track that you don't really notice much, and I think that's what makes it effective.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good point right there. It's a nice build-up for the following song, which is Killing Time. I feel like it's got a nice placement on the album. We've had experiences pretty recently with albums where they had interlude tracks that were oddly placed, and it kind of ruins the flow of the album. Mm-hmm. This doesn't do that. The flow maintains, and like you just said, you kind of don't notice it, which is a good thing. You're not supposed to notice it. It's supposed to be just there to carry you from one part to the next part, and that's all it does, and it does a good job.
Exactly. This album is a really good example of how to do that right. So for every time you've seen us say, hey, this interlude is weird, interludes like this are the ones that we're talking about when we're saying this is, you know, how you do it properly.
How you do it. Celebutant.
Oh, forgot to mention that. That song's sick as hell. Love that song. That song, and I may have even mentioned it last week, is a song that totally instantly jumped up there with the other 3 singles. Like, yeah, this is some of the best on the album. Love that song.
I agree.
How did I forget?
Up there with We'll Be Back as the top songs on the album.
Yep.
This song is just fucking awesome. And I mentioned in the first impressions or our new release video last week that the riff on this song reminds me of something you might have heard from Kill 'Em All. I don't know if you said you weren't quite sure because you don't have a lot of reference with Kill 'Em All, but did you have a chance to go listen to any? Or
Unfortunately, I was too addicted to this album to check.
When you have a chance, though, check it out and you'll see what I'm talking about. I think people would agree that there's the riff and the way this song presents itself just sounds like something from Kill 'Em All. It really does. Awesome song.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was something that Dave wrote during that time and then just kind of pulled it out for this song, that he just kind of had like, what's this idea? Let's do this.
I honestly think while writing this album, Dave was just maybe going through his data bank, or maybe he was listening to his old albums and just was going, okay, I really like this from that, and just channeling his own, inspiring off himself basically. Which I think I think that's pretty cool, and that's how I felt when I was listening to this album, that he must have done that. I just thought it was totally cool. I also looked up what Celebutant means, and I couldn't find an answer. I don't know what the fuck it means.
I think it's like a play on words, not entirely sure. I remember I was listening on the radio. This song came on the radio, and there's a bit of Dave talking about how this song was about the people who would do anything to be celebrities. You know, people licking donuts in public, people doing like stupid shit to get famous.
Yeah.
That's like generally what the song is about.
Yeah,
So-
it's just an awesome song.
For sure.
If I had to take a dump,
Take a small
I
dump,
think "Killing Time" is probably the weakest song on the album. Just to be a little bit critical of it, because we're just praising. I mean, you gotta throw a little bit of criticism. I don't really even know why. It's just not that strong of a song.
I guess it might be a case of like a lot of things stand out. This one just happens to not.
Yeah, Junkie is another one that kind of falls a little bit on the flat side, but it's funny because TV Fish said, it sounds like you saying chunky, and then that's all I heard all week.
Yeah.
Is chunky, and it makes it funny. And when it's funny, it's entertaining. So it's a win-win.
You still enjoy it.
Enjoy it that way. So, I mean, I can go on about a lot of things, but let's get to ratings. So I guess I'll just go first. It'll get my toe tag. It's got a lot going for it. I didn't even mention anything guitar-wise on here, other than riffs and stuff, but the solos are good. Yeah, of course, it's Megadeth. But vocally, a couple small points I want to mention. Dave does a lot of these like whoa-ohs and yeah-yeahs and kind of things that in a few songs, and I like that. I think those are pretty cool. Almost sounds like he's ripping off James Hetfield a little bit, because James does that. No, not really. But yeah, I like that. But another thing that was a little bit disappointing for me is Dave's voice is not like it used to be. He's doing a great job. That scream you mentioned is awesome, but his pitch is lower, and I miss the high-pitched, whiny kind of Dave. I like it. I know it's an acquired thing.
He's
a lot
just
of
an
people
older
hate
man
it.
now, you know?
He's an older man. He's recovered from throat cancer or whatever. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. So I understand. It's not a bad thing. It's just there's a specific song. It was Sacrifice, where he's singing, and I could just imagine it in that higher, whinier voice, and I just craved to hear it like that. Just because that's what I like, and that's just me. But there's still not a bad thing. He still had a great vocal performance through this album.
I think he sounded a lot more like his older self on We'll Be Back.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is not a complaint. This is just me going, I wish he was just a little bit like before. But anyways, it's a toe tag for me. So awesome album.
Well, I mean, I agree with everything you said here pretty much for the most part. I mean, it gets my toe tag as well. I've been praising so much about this album, understandably so. It's incredible. It is the best modern Megadeth album with such a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Like, you thought Dystopia was good, you'll love this album 100% because it takes everything that you like about Dystopia and just adds more things that you might like. If you like classic Megadeth, there's gonna be stuff in here for you. This album is awesome. Loved it. Anyway, guys, 2 toe tags for the sick, the dying, and the dead. Very understandable, I mean, as you can see from our review here, and that's all we got for you guys. Remember to like the video if you liked it, and comment, tell us in the comments below, what do you think of this album? Do you love it as much as we do? We always love to hear what you guys have to say, and subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
No, by yourself.
And keep the horns up.